Today, I want to talk about a part of my identity that I imagine many of you share. This part of me that has, for so much of my life, felt like being able to debate someone objectively and see all the perspectives equally is favorable. It's to be admired that I have that skill, that I don't get overly emotional, I don't get too wrapped up in one perspective. I can easily play devil's advocate and see all the sides of an argument equally and even switch sides easily. So I'm an ENTP in the 16 types, and that's very common for this type. It's often called the debater. But other types like INTPs and others certainly enjoy debate as well. And I want to talk a bit about one way of seeing a maturation process for this type of identity. And as you can see, I'm in my car. I felt so strongly about this. I was just at a weekend retreat, and I was just thinking about this over and over again as I've been driving home. And I thought, I'm going to pull over now and just record this because it feels so alive in me to speak to it. Um, just noticing for so much of my life how much I have deeply identified with this aspect of myself, this objectivity, this logic, this way that I can debate anyone about anything at any time. Just give me a topic, I'll prove you wrong, I'll argue any side. And one reason I realize now that I've been able to do that is because I've been so checked out of my feelings and my body for so much of my life. I've been so in my head, so in my analytical mind that I have been able to discount the uh, the warnings, the needs, the deeper parts of my emotional landscape and my bodily signals. And so it's almost like I've been debating as a logical robot instead of a full human. And I know that's probably unpleasant to hear if you're an ENTP or someone who is highly analytical and enjoys debate. Um, but I think actually what I saw as this huge strength of mine, that I'm purely objective, I can debate any side, was actually an immature form of me that now I'm finally beginning to mature in. And it what I noticed so strongly this weekend of hanging out with this group of people who are highly intentional and mindful and authentic and really enjoy slowing down and being vulnerable together, is that as I was really slowing down, when some contentious topics came up, and I found myself debating someone, right, really trying to, really believing that I know the right answer and I want to convince them, um, I noticed that I wasn't as able as I used to be to stay, quote, purely objective, to feel like I can easily switch sides and play devil's advocate, and I'm equally comfortable in all those areas. Instead, I found that, wow, actually, I really believe in this. This side that I'm arguing is actually deeply important to me. It's really aligned with my values. And so it would actually feel quite wrong for me to switch sides. Like I could do that. That part of me is still in there, but it almost felt, yeah, just that it would be wrong, just deeply wrong, um, to not stay with this part of me and honor this part of me that believes in this thing so strongly, that believes it's so important for other people to understand this. Um, and really where I noticed this happening was in contentious topics that were specifically related to how we treat other people, how other people ask to be treated. And that's where it just felt so critical to me to argue for those people, to say, hey, they're asking to be treated a certain way. And this isn't a topic that we should just be lightly debating the pros and cons and all the, all sides are equal, all sides are valid. It's like, no, this is really about reducing suffering in other people and making the world a better place. And it's not something that we should be treating flippantly, or rather that I should be treating flippantly as an ENTP in my mind of just, oh yeah, I'll objectively argue both sides. There's some issues where um, it's important to listen to all sides. Yes, it's important to be curious about other perspectives, but I think it's important that we really practice noticing how we actually feel about something. And this really reminds me about how for so many years, I would pride myself on being the person who knew all the things, who knew all the facts, who read all the news stories, read all the Reddit threads. And so I could easily tell you, oh yeah, these have been the top topics being discussed on Reddit for the past few days, or these are the most popular memes right now, or these are, interesting facts, right? And that was such an important part of my identity that I moved through all this information so quickly. I kept reading news stories and articles and Reddit threads, and I didn't really slow down to really check, how do I feel about these things? How do these things actually impact me? It was really just a question of kind of consuming as many articles as I could. And so I think that is what allowed me to be this debater persona who would just say, yeah, I have all the facts. All facts are equal. I can just swap between them and it doesn't really matter. And so now getting in touch with, when I read a news story, how do I actually feel about that? If I feel like, oh, I want to share this story with someone, why is it exactly? Why do I want to share that with them? Is it just because it's interesting? I think that's kind of um, that's an easy excuse, but it's really a surface level thing. What does interesting mean? If I want to share a news story with someone or a fact with someone, I think it's really worth slowing down and checking in with myself about what is it about this thing. If I share this fact about, how uh, interesting that, wow, climate changes is happening faster than we thought it was, or oh, there's an increased chance of earthquakes happening in my area or something. Like those types of articles aren't just interesting. The reason I want to share them is probably because I'm actually afraid. That's not um, it's not the top of mind feeling. If I didn't slow down to look more deeply, I would just think, oh, interesting. Scientists discovered this new thing that shows that, the climate is heating up faster than we thought, or earthquakes are a little more likely than we thought. Interesting. Okay, I'll share that. But now I can check, like, wow, why did this touch me so much that my thought is, I need to share this with other people? And it probably is something to do with discomfort that I'm feeling. And by wanting to share with someone else, I want to connect with them over it. And I want my feelings to be validated. I want them to see me, or I want to be sharing in my challenging experience with someone else so I'm not alone. So they can sit there at my side and say, wow, dang, yeah, climate change is happening. That's real. That's uncomfortable. Or whatever the topic is, right? Um, so yeah, I guess my main intent here is to just share this um, this unfolding in myself as I'm maturing as an ENTP and a debater type, um, to realize that I think it's an illusion we tell ourselves that uh, all debates can be reduced to just kind of objective, different sides that we can switch between. And actually, everything is inherently subjective because everything is filtered through our particular sensory apparatus, our particular nervous system, our particular brains. And so debates are subjective, they're not objective. And so I think if you are someone who feels 100% comfortable just playing devil's advocate all the time, just taking those uh, purposefully controversial positions, I think that it might be interesting for you to just slow down and really notice, like, how do I feel when I play devil's advocate? How do I feel when I take the controversial position? If I really check in with my feelings, if I close my eyes and really investigate, is there tension in my body? Am I holding an uncomfortable posture? Am I totally easeful as I debate this way? Um, and if I am sharing information with someone, if I'm sharing a news story or whatever, how do I actually feel about that thing? Why am I sharing it? Um, so really my message here is practice not just staying in your head, even if you're a super analytical debater type. Practice examining the thoughts in your head, what's happening in there, but then expand kind of the search radius to see what else is happening in the rest of you around this topic. All right. Hello again. I'm home. And, I wanted to touch on one more aspect of this that strikes me after the recording I left earlier. That you might find yourself wondering, after listening to that, why would I want what you're suggesting, right? Like if your current mode of operation is thinking of yourself as a purely objective debater type who is able to effortlessly jump between perspectives, play devil's advocate, treat all information, all sides equally, why would you want to switch modes into something where you feel more and you might feel more offended? You might feel more shut down. You might feel like, oh, when this person is debating me, I feel constricted. I feel tension. I feel just more. I'm not just able to divorce myself from the feelings and just remain in the mind. I'm not just able to be this kind of purely intellectual, analytical, objective force in the world, right? Why would I want to reduce myself to this kind of more frail human, right? And that is exactly the perspective that I would have taken earlier in my life. So I really understand. And I think it really is the opposite. I know it might be hard to believe if you are someone who's very analytical and not really in touch with your body, like I was for most of my life. And I think what you get by progressing along this path toward more embodiment, more feelings awareness, and less objectivity is you get more aliveness. It's like, yeah, you could be an unfeeling robot computer who can just easily switch between sides and debate anything, be purely objective, but then you're missing out on the human experience. You're missing out on feeling more deeply. And the truth is that you are feeling under the surface. You're just covering it up with this layer of logic, objectivity that actually prevents you from seeing how you really feel about something and how those feelings are affecting you, right? Like in the examples I gave earlier, if I share an article with someone about a natural disaster and I just think, oh, this is interesting science, and I don't actually realize that I'm afraid, some part of me in there is afraid, then that fear is still there. And if that fear is potent, it's going to keep manifesting in some way. It's going to lead to some chronic tension in my body, or it's going to lead me to be influenced when I make certain decisions to be maybe more from a kind of fight or flight response place, or a place of, making a decision that I think is done logically, but it's actually being colored by this fear that I have underneath the surface. Right? And this should be very clear to you if you think about how you probably make worse decisions when you're feeling super stressed or super sleep deprived, right? Because that state in your body is impacting your mind, impacting the types of decisions that you make, your decision-making process, the types of thoughts that arise, right? Even, yeah, the thoughts themselves, the types of thoughts that appear. Think about the difference. If you're on vacation feeling super chill and easeful, what kinds of thoughts are going to arise versus if you're at work on a tight deadline feeling way overworked, way stressed, people aren't appreciating you, different types of thoughts are going to appear, right? Like, life isn't fair. I hate all these stupid people. I need to get out of here, right? Versus the types of thoughts that might appear on vacation, like, wow, life is good. Maybe I should finally write that book that I've been meaning to write, right? So you can see that your state, your emotions will very much impact how your mind actually works. So this to me is the real value of stopping to really check, how do I feel about this side that I'm taking in the debate? How do I feel about this argument that I'm making? It's not just about skillfully arguing whatever side. It's about really checking, which side do I actually believe in? And that's actually been something that's been hard for me for a lot of my life as an ENTP, that I've been so skilled at just switching sides and arguing everything that often it hasn't been clear to me which side I actually believe in. And I might be able to say, sure, logically speaking, this side has the superior arguments. But that's very different from saying, which side do I feel most aligned with, deep down? And you might think, well, that's a weaker position, right? It's better to say which side makes the most logical arguments than which side do I feel most aligned with. But the truth is, we're driven by feelings. That's where motivation and energy comes from. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling drained, if you're feeling like you're not making progress, probably what you need is more feeling, right? Logic alone is not going to convince you. You logically know you should get enough sleep, you should eat well, and you probably don't do all those things as well as you could be. You probably don't prioritize the things that you know are logically important. But when you feel the drive of, wow, nutrition is really important to me, sleep is really important to me, right? Then you're actually going to do it. So checking in to really examine, what do I feel most aligned with? What feels most alive, most bubbling, most energized in me? That is where the juice is. That's what's going to really propel you forward in your life. All right. Thanks for listening, and I'm curious to hear how all this landed with you. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And I hope you have a wonderful day.